The Chicago Bears may not be dead yet. Suddenly, they're a 2-5 team taking on one of the Nick, let's call it one of the more complicated opponents in the NFL in a Los Angeles Chargers team that's brimming with talent, but injuries and questionable coaching decisions seem to keep holding them back. Can this new look Bears team actually steal a win on Sunday night? What happened last Sunday against the Raiders? Those two topics and plenty more on this episode of Bear With Us. What's going on, everybody? My name is Robert Schmitz, editor-in-chief of Da Bears blog, here with my co-host Nick Whalen. Nick, what a wonderful night to be talking about football. How you doing?
Yeah, man. I mean, it's coming off a win, and there's good news on the injury report, which I'm sure we'll talk about. A little bad news on there too, but yeah, I mean, the Bears win, Packers lose, draft pick positions still all good. I mean, things are all good here.
So tell me how you're feeling about that. By the way, weeks removed from it. We're on the second podcast. Nobody's coming to this podcast. We love you listeners. We love all of you, but nobody's about to flame us for talking about exactly how we feel. How are you balancing right now the maybe losing could help the organization, but also watching a win is objectively more fun? Like, how do you balance the two?
I'm fine as long as because we're seeing progression from players and knowing that we have Carolina's pick and it's getting even more distance, which Kyler Murray, by the way, everybody, full participant today in practice.
Oh, yeah.
And Arizona's the only one-win team in the NFL, which helps more. Like, I'm okay with it. If the Bears even end up with 6-7 wins, I'm okay with it because that means that Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright and Jalen Johnson, hopefully he signs, et cetera, like have continued to progress and play well. And then you enter the number one pick. It's kind of the best of both worlds.
Right. I mean, to use an example, in week 5, it was easy to have quiet backroom conversations about, oh, if the Bears are going to lose a bunch of games, then maybe they could get 1-2. If they could get 1-2, do you know what they could do for this franchise? But thinking a little further in, or thinking into what that would look like, Nick, that would probably mean the team was just awful. Like,
Yes.
It's the NFL. And with DJ Moore playing the football that he is, with Darnell Wright playing the football that he is, there is an element of you were trying to have your cake and eat it too. If you wanted, let me list off a couple things. You wanted Darnell Wright to be good. You wanted Kyler Gordon to show that he's got the stuff. You wanted Tyreek Stevenson to take a strong step forward. You wanted these rookie defensive linemen to develop a little bit. You wanted Darnell Wright to show that he was well worth a first-round pick. You wanted one of the quarterbacks, both of the quarterbacks, to kind of show you like at least a little something that you could grab onto. You wanted Tyler Scott to develop. You wanted Roschon Johnson to develop. You wanted the offensive line to stabilize. Man, if these things
the free agent additions to show something, all those guys.
If these things happened, and many of them have so far, winning is actually pretty unavoidable given how easy the Bears' schedule is. Like, if they were playing more teams at the level of the Lions, the Buccaneers, honestly, like the Bucs are a perfect example, the Falcons, the Saints, some teams that are coming up later, that would be one thing. But they didn't. They played the Brian Hoyer-led Raiders. And if you don't mind a tiny little breakdown, because I know we always tend to go over the last game a little bit, man, the film made Hoyer look way worse than I remembered him playing on Sunday. Like, the Raiders were getting sold at the quarterback position, and that's fine. Yeah. That happens sometimes, but it was stark watching him.
So I have a trivia question, but I'm going to wait on that because
okay.
Kind of what you're talking about. There was a I don't know if you subscribe to The Athletic. I do. I recommend anyone to do it. It's very cheap and they have great writing over there for literally everything. Like, it's not just Bears. You want to
It's awesome.
Go read about the Cubs or the Sox or the Blackhawks, or whatever. But Kevin Fishbane had this graphic because he talked about the turnaround of the defense, which I think has been the biggest turnaround so far. And it's really, really drastic. Now I know Denver and the Raiders and Washington aren't juggernauts on offense.
No.
And honestly, for being very, very honest, Green Bay and the Buccaneers aren't juggernauts on offense either.
No, that was part of what
the city is.
To your point, that's a huge part of what made the Bears offense so bad in those first couple weeks is that they didn't do what, like, take the Patriots, right? The Patriots have now played Buffalo. I don't know if they've played them twice. For some reason, my brain keeps telling me they have. I don't know who the first team to blow out the Patriots like 38-3 was, but it happened 2 weeks back to back. And then
Right.
like plenty of teams, including the Patriots, I think this weekend play the Dolphins. That's never any fun for anybody.
Nope.
Compare that to the Bears, who've played what? The Buccaneers, who just scored 13 points last week, I think, at least
Mhm.
under 20. The Packers, who can't seem to score points in the first 3 quarters of any game. They played the Chiefs. Obviously, the Chiefs are really good. The Broncos had a better offense against certainly us than anybody else so
Mhm.
far, outside of maybe Washington. Like the offenses the Bears were allowing everything to were pretty bad,
Right.
but
Right.
then they get a couple more pretty bad offenses.
Right, and yeah, and they've turned around. So there's a lot of stats, and I think people will believe in whatever stats they want to believe in. Okay, I'm not going to here to tell you like you have to think of because there's some people that are like it's DVOA. That's the only thing you can look at, or EPA. But
Right.
so he puts together this graphic, and the Bears went from. And I'll do this quickly for the listeners, but for EPA. The Bears, the first 4 weeks were 31st in the NFL in terms of defense. And the last 3 weeks, they were third. Um, Yards per carry, 10th the first 4 weeks, then they were first. Passer rating for quarterbacks, 31st the first 4 weeks, then 14th recently. Um, Yards per attempt, 31st, and now third. Sacks, this one is, I mean, I know the Sam Howell game really helps this one. Sacks, they were 32nd from 4 weeks, and then they were tied for seventh the last 3 weeks.
With what
Third down
number? You have to
percentage.
say the number
Oh,
of
8
sacks,
sacks.
which is
8 sacks.
hilarious that
Right.
makes you seventh in the NFL, bringing down 2 weeks of 3 quarterbacks and 1 week of two.
Yep.
Like, is the
Yep.
NFL just not sacking guys? Separate conversation.
No, I know. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. I mean, third down percentage, which is key. We talked about this in our post game episode, which was huge in the win
Massive.
over the Raiders.
Massive.
32nd to third. I mean, just everything. Points per game, 31st. The last 3 weeks, tied for sixth. I mean, it has been such a big turnaround on defense. And we talked about this. Some of those guys, I mean, it felt like Billings was the only guy playing well early on, Jalen Johnson too. And now
Right.
the linebackers have come together. Walker's playing better. Gordon's back. I mean, it's all kind of coming together. But I think that's a huge part of this season. And talking about how are the Bears going to be the rest of the year? I think this next game is really going to tell us a lot, like whether this
Oh, yeah.
defense is not bad or it was 3 really bad offenses.
And it's so funny too, because Nick, you talked about a bunch of players stepping up. There's this very easy theory to latch on to if you're a very optimistic Bears fan. And if you are, this is awesome. I'm so happy for you. I really am. Where people look and they go, oh, well, when was the defense bad? Well, when Alan Williams was the DC and immediately afterwards. Alan Williams leaves, Matt
Yeah.
Eberflus finally gets his secondary back, and now they're balling. Here's the thing, Nick. If I said I don't believe that story, would you believe me? Because at least what I've seen so far is that the defense didn't change. Like weeks 1 through 5, weeks 1 to 7, honestly, there are a bunch of the calls on first down. We're going to call a cover 2 zone. On
Mhm.
second and long, we're going to get Tampa 2. The difference is that Matt Eberflus seems like he figured out that he can't call zone anymore on third down. And
Yep.
so they're playing a lot more, not a ton, but a lot more compared to the Eberflus era, man coverage. And
Yeah. Well,
Tyreek
and
Stevenson,
blitzing too.
and they're doing man blitzes behind that
Yep.
because they know they can't get pressure and they
Yep.
figure they might as well. And you know what, Nick? It turns out that a big, long corner that wears number 29 named Tyreek Stevenson, he can get you a down or two in man
Mhm.
coverage. And that big, long corner wearing number 33, he's kind of a beast when it comes to man coverage. And
Dude.
they're winning downs that you can tell these offenses are straight up surprised that they're not able to get conversions off of because Devontae Adams is standing there looking for a flag on a 2nd and 18 that Tyreek Stevenson runs the route for him and bats the ball away. Like early in the first quarter, Tyreek Stevenson comes up with like 3 passing stops by himself. And then you've
Mhm.
got They honestly, if there's anything I want to credit the coaching staff with, it's that a lot of the role playing guys, Greg Stroman, he's been playing really good ball. Jalen Jones, when he gets in the game, has been an awesome dime corner that takes on tight ends. Kyler Gordon is flying around in the nickel spot. Like, credit to the way the coaching staff has developed a lot of the individual players, but it has been a schematic shift for Matt Eberflus to go
Yep.
away from, this is the highest blitz rate so far, the 2023 Chicago Bears. It's not by much, but the Indianapolis blitz rate never got above about 22%. Right now, sitting at 23.5%. And I know for a fact
Wow.
in week 3, it was 18. So they've definitely blitzed more than they did starting around week 4, week 5. And it's bearing fruit. Honestly, it is. I assume that there's going to be an adjustment coming. I'm not trying to be a doomer. There's just a decent chance that people keep prepping for the classical Matt Eberflus defense and kind of getting punched in the mouth when it is Eberflus version 2. And it doesn't help anything, Nick, that if you really push me to say it, you didn't, so I want to say it anyways, pivoting to more man is like the most basic shift in football. Right? Yeah. In the world of, are we going to call that super good coaching? Golf clap for the shift. Right. We love shifting to what our players are good at.
But honestly, like it's instead of doing, quarters or match, right? Instead of doing the man 8 to 10 yards down the field, now they're just doing it at 2 to 3, which is better for our corners.
Much better. It's more in the world of like, is Flus winning me over with this? I don't know about that. We're going to have to see this.
You're getting closer, though.
Well, I have to acknowledge a positive where I see a positive.
Yep.
I would argue with you, Nick, that it'll be really hard to win me back from a September that simply can't happen. Like year 2, after you just got the first overall pick. Yes, I get it. Young team. Yes, I get it. Or you could argue, these things take time to gel. Yes, people are obviously going to cite the 2022 Lions. Right. But like you needed a hotter start than that. And we can see the teams that we lost to weren't good. That wasn't getting beaten by a tough schedule at the start of the year.
To be fair, with how everyone's playing in the NFL, I mean, the Chiefs are good. Everyone else just like plays so up and down. I mean, Minnesota, we just saw Minnesota last week and you're like, man, Chicago should have beat them. And then they should have just crushed the 49ers if they didn't kick field goals in the red zone. Like it should have been a blowout, honestly. Here's one more stat for you, and then I want to get to my trivia question, and then we'll probably dive deeper.
Perfect.
We talked about this before the season started. Our number one worry in this whole team was the rush defense allowing too much to then teams could do whatever on offense on second and short and third and short. I don't know if did you look at, I have it on the show sheet. Did you look at where the stats are on the bottom or no?
I'm trying not to because you said you had a trivia question. And what
can
I say?
And this isn't it, but this is just another question.
Uh-huh.
Where do you think the Bears defense ranks in terms of yards per carry allowed?
So I did see Kevin Fishbane's graphic, but overall I'm going to go with 7th.
So, I mean, I hope I didn't get this incorrectly. I have them tied for first with, I think it's New England.
That would be sick.
At 3.4 yards per carry allowed.
They've done a good job against the run. They've done this all year. I mean, for anybody who's wondering, like, where's the whiplash, right? You have to remember what you were complaining about. You, the listener. What did you say at the water cooler? What did you say to your wife? What did you text your other Bears fan friends? You said, how do we keep giving up 3rd and long? Let me ask you this, Nick. Does a team with a bad rush defense ever see 3rd and long?
No.
No, they don't. The Bears rush defense has been doing this. Like they've gotten surprisingly good play from number 97, Andrew Billings. DeMarcus Walker has done a good job. And because honestly, if you were going to give Justin Jones any credit, it's that he can get waxed by most double teams, but at least the linebackers are walking around the second guy. So he's effectively keeping the linebackers clean. And now TJ Edwards is a little faster in the hole than he was at the start of the year. And boom, we got rush stops.
Well, and also we talked about this when the defense isn't on the field forever, they're fresh and they all play better. Like shocker. Like that's why you see defensive lines rotate all the time in any level of football, because the fresher there, the better they play. And we're seeing a different Justin Jones when he's not just dead tired. And then, so to that same point of yards per carry, the last 3 weeks, Chicago was first in the NFL, 2.5 yards per carry.
Right.
Wow.
I I do think they ran into the right offenses because
Right.
Washington doesn't run the ball that well, and then they caught up with the Raiders, who inexplicably cannot get their ground game going, and they've been
Well,
trying.
all I heard is Josh Jacobs is going to go nuts. That's
That
all I heard. And
the
then,
people who told you
nope.
that didn't read their own statistics. The Raiders
Oh, I know.
entered the game 29th in yards per
I
carry,
know.
and they sure looked like it in that game. And then the week before that, let me see, Minnesota. Minnesota's had issues running their ball
Yep.
all year long. And
Yep.
ironically, a bunch of the teams that they'd already played, they're not great at running the ball either. The Chargers aren't great at running the ball.
No,
Like
they're not. We'll get to that. Yep.
it's so funny when you look at this where, like you're saying, I mean, if you and I, Nick, were to go through the entire league and we were just to get to objectively say good team, bad team, those are your only two options, right? We might name 20 to 21 bad teams. Like there are
Yes.
a bunch of teams in
Yeah.
the NFL right now that
Mhm.
have not exactly brought it. And
Yep.
that's going to happen sometimes.
Well, early in the year, people thought Green Bay was going to be a good team, right? 2-1, and
It was
all this
always,
stuff, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, hold on.
oh no, we talked about this, right? Like all these different podcasts that we listen to with people saying that the Green Bay Packers are about to be a 10-7, 11-6 team. That was, I think, always ridiculous. And I mean, we made our own assumptions. We said
Yep.
if they beat the Packers, the Bears will be blank. And they
Yep.
didn't. And since then, we have come to a sobering reality very quickly, right? But I know you got a Packers trivia question for me.
I do. I'm itching at this one. This one is
What you got? What you
something.
got?
Okay, so listeners too, you want to chime in, and if you're a Packers listener, you're listening to this. I'm from Wisconsin, so
We care
whatever.
about you. We love you.
Yeah,
Go
yeah, yeah.
Bears. Screw the
Yeah,
Packers.
yeah. Welcome to life without a Hall of Fame quarterback like everyone else has. Okay. The Packers have scored 20 or fewer points in 4 straight games.
Yes.
When is the last time Green Bay did that?
Man. All right, that is a great question. If I had to guess, it was. Do I have to give you the year?
You can give me a range, because I mean that's tough. That's very broad.
I'm gonna guess it was specifically 20. Was it 14? Like, so I'm guessing the McClellan injury, right? Where Shea breaks Rogers' collarbone.
Oh, yeah.
Back in 2013, 2014. And for a while there, they had to start. I don't remember if they started Hunley or Seneca Wallace, but they had to start a
Was
backup.
Scott Tolzien in there too, or no?
What he might have been.
am I
He
making
might
that
have
up?
been, but I don't think it was Flynn in this specific case.
No,
And
no.
and so that would be my guess is the last time Rogers missed significant time.
And he did miss time like several years. It's earlier than that.
Oh,
This
man.
might be, and again, this is tougher off the top of my head. This might be pre-Rogers. The last time they scored 20.
You're kidding me. You're kidding me. When you say earlier, you mean I thought you meant earlier as in it's more close to us. No.
No. Like
It's
or
been
sorry,
that
longer.
long.
Yeah,
It's
longer.
been
Yeah,
that long?
2005 is the last time
Oh,
they scored
crap.
20 or fewer points in 4
No
straight
way.
games.
Nick, you are pulling my leg. That is
2005.
Oh my god. So you're telling me Jordan Love is that kid who broke the high school's 72 or 72 year playoff streak at this rate? Like he's starting to snap records
Well,
that are
okay, yes, and so to finish that off, they did it 6 straight times that year to finish 4-12 that year. That shows you how bad that was.
right.
But the thing with, and again, this isn't a Packers podcast, but the thing that's most shocking is the Packers have lost 2 in a row playing the Raiders, and Denver held them to 17 points. The same Denver defense that
Yes.
everyone is lighting up. That's the worst statistically since 1980, whatever it is.
It's funny you say that, right? What if I have I have a theory, Nick. I'm about to hit you with something that I cannot substantiate other than a
All right.
bunch of anecdotal stuff, right?
Yeah.
The scariest thing to be is pretty bad but not the worst in the NFL because something that isn't sustainable is when you are the worst. Denver was the worst defense for 4 to 5 weeks. Things were going to change. They were going to I don't know what they did against Green Bay. I can't pretend like I watched the whole game back on all 22 and broke it down, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But usually we see this trend. We've seen it with the Bears, where you hit a point where you are so bad. Like the Bears were by nearly any metric, they were 30 or by nearly all metrics, they were the 31st worst defense in the NFL. Like
Right.
the only reason they weren't is because you had this Broncos defense that was historically bad. So you're
Yeah.
still gonna hit your gut check,
But
right?
but but you had talked about this philosophy on or this theory on
Right.
this podcast because you said, well, you know what? Carolina at some point isn't going to be so bad that they're going to get a win or two. Like you have the same thing.
Yeah, I guess I'm consistent, but like
You are consistent.
it's more to say that like the Denver Broncos are rebounding a little. Maybe it's a dead cat bounce.
Yeah.
Do we care? No. I hope they win 4 games.
No,
Like
no, they won. Now they have 2 wins and they beat Green Bay. It was like the best of both worlds.
exactly. And
Well, but it's getting into my brain now. I'm getting a little Roberty where I'm like,
me,
man, I need Green Bay to win a game or two because
me.
yeah, man. Now we've been doing this too long now already. Like where your thoughts are
Oh yeah.
creeping into my thoughts.
Green Bay is dangerous because they keep losing guys. They just put Eric Stokes, their second corner, on IR again. They can't
Yep.
get
Darnold
Jair
Savage
Alexander
too.
out. They can't get Jair Alexander active. Like you mentioned, Darnell Savage. Green Bay made fun of him all season long. Yet the backup's not better, and so it doesn't help anything. I remember any positivity that I had because I had some minor positivity about. I basically talked about how the Green Bay offense has a bunch of talent that it's not gonna blend well because they're
Mhm.
all so young and they're gonna
Yeah, they're young.
screw up a bunch. Suddenly, everybody's writing that article this week. You're welcome, NFL world. But
No, they dogged you for that one,
I
man.
I got dragged and then it happened. And I mean, what could be funnier? I'm just
Yep.
saying. But so
Yep.
what doesn't help is that the linchpin of this Packers offense, the guy who was going to make it acceptable, cannot stay on the field.
Yeah.
That's Christian Watson. Like,
Oh, I thought Aaron Jones. You could say
so
him too.
Jones too. Jones totally fits. I really
Mhm.
appreciate you saying that because you're absolutely right. Aaron Jones is a stud with a capital S. But in the world of the passing game, Watson was your clear wide receiver one. He was the weapon that took a little heat off of Dobbs. And the
Mhm.
moment that Watson isn't playing, he has no connection with Jordan Love. He hasn't practiced. He hasn't played.
You know
Like,
the craziest thing? So I don't know how much of the game you watched, but he got hurt like in the last drive of the game,
right.
like second last play, hurt his knee. He was a full participant today in practice.
What
I was shocked.
happened?
I thought it was like MCL, he'd be out like 2 weeks or something, but he's back. So
I mean,
I don't know. I goes to sleep. All right. So I got a bunch of stats like I normally do for this
yes.
Chargers Bears matchup. But
Oh,
that,
I was going to say,
before we get to that,
you
we
really
got to talk
don't.
about the game from last week.
I
Okay.
know.
Yeah, yeah. And I have maybe a hot take. And Bears fans, I want you to know, okay, I cheer on all of the Bears players, even Lucas Patrick, okay? So I cheer on all of them to succeed. My all 22, and I haven't made a video yet, but it'll be coming out probably Friday. Actually, I don't work on Friday, so that'll give me some time to do it. Let's talk about Tyson Bagent, okay? I'm a big Tyson Bagent fan.
Preseason superstar.
Well, I mean, first off, great story. Beating out PJ Walker. We talked about it a ton. Led Chicago to a win. We talked about how the moment's not too big for him in terms of how
Yes.
he handles himself, how he
Yes.
operates. He didn't do negative plays. The film said all of that stuff.
Yes.
However, Bears fans, how good did Tyson Bagent play? Now, in terms of just overall quarterbacking, if I had to give him a grade, A, B, C, all the way on down, I probably give him C plus, B minus.
So I think, do you mind if I jump in just a
No,
little
no,
bit?
go ahead. What grade would you give him?
That's the thing, right? I am not going to assign the same grade to not Jair, sorry, Jatiri Carter. I'm not going to assign the same grade to Larry Borum as I am Nate Davis and Braxton Jones.
Well,
If
but
you're
you
picking
have to
up on
though.
what I'm putting down,
Yeah, but
not
you have to though. You
But
have to, because football's football, and then you could add in the context if you want.
which I hear what you're saying. I promise I do. But
Yeah.
at the same time, if Gardner Minshew enters the game, I'm expecting him to play a different type of ball
Right.
than
Right.
Anthony Richardson,
Yeah.
because I am a believer that you have this group of quarterbacks, the rule breakers, right? The dynamos, the game changers, the game breakers, the starters, right? And there's not that many of them. Can we be so honest? There aren't 32 starters in the
I mean
NFL.
like game changers, like 5, then you have the fringe guys, then you have
Oh yeah. But I'm even talking
quarterback's a
like
tough position,
let's
y'all.
let's use Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr and Jared Goff as examples of the guys where I'm not trying to talk necessarily exclusively about Josh Allen. Like there are some throws that Kirk Cousins will flick over the middle. The ball has velo. It nestles between two defenders and hits TJ Hawkinson in the hands, albeit he's diving. And the announcers have the gall to say, I can't believe Hawkinson didn't catch that. Why did they say it? Because they know how good a throw Kirk Cousins just
I mean,
made. And
Kirk Cousins played his best game against the Niners,
oh
I
my
think, in
gosh,
his whole career.
his eyes, you could just feel it. You know what I'm saying?
He was stepping up into pockets that were, like, collapsing and drilling his 3rd or 4th read. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is
Absolutely.
awesome quarterbacking."
And I am a believer that while there are 32, okay, so I'm going to counter your hot take with a separate hot take.
Sure.
There are 32 starting spots in the NFL, and I
Mhm.
generally think that year to year they are only inhabited by about the 22 of the 32 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I believe that the 32nd best starter, the 31st best starter, through probably the 25th, 24th best starter are all backups on other teams. Like Andy Dalton can play. Andy
Yeah.
Dalton is probably better than Desmond Ritter. In fact, I'm not going to wince that hard. I think he is.
No,
Like
he is.
Carolina has a better quarterback on their bench.
Yeah,
And
well, Tyrod Taylor's outplaying Daniel Jones right now, same
not
thing.
an uncommon. Taylor Heineke rules. For years, Nick Foles was a constant source of dubs for whatever team ended up needing him. Case Keenum, another story. We see
Yep,
this all the time, man. Where
yeah.
like a very good, just not great and not young quarterback will get relegated to a backup role. And it puts this, we have this stain. We have this poisonous way we use the word, oh, he's a backup. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
it's
get
like,
it.
oh my gosh, Tyson Bagent can become, I believe, like he could grow into being one of the 30 best quarterbacks in the NFL. I just have a hard time seeing him grow to being a top 15 quarterback in the NFL. And what
Well,
you're talking about, where you're disappointed, are the plays that would maybe put him in that category. And no, he didn't make him. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
But
Well, there's so, like, to your point, I think part of what makes, the non-starters, we'll say, right? Um, I think do well when they go in at times too, or even like with Bagent, there's literally no pressure on the guy because he goes in like you're talking about Minshew. You're like, well, we'll see what we got. Instead of like you have to lead the franchise. Like from if I know people played in high school, probably listen to this more than NFL guys. When in high school, I'm sure there are guys like either you or teammates that played better as juniors than they did as seniors. Because as juniors, you didn't have to be a captain. You didn't have to give the speeches.
it's
You didn't have
different.
to drag other guys along. You could just be there and just ball out. And there's not as much pressure, even if it's pressure you put on yourself. There's not as much pressure as is when you're the guy. You're the top pick. You're supposed to do this. Jordan Love, you got to replace a Hall of Famer versus you talked about it, Matt Flynn just coming in last game of the season. Who cares? Throw
Balling.
6 touchdowns.
And
So my issue with Bagent, I guess, in terms of things I think he could have done better with in the game, just getting real technical. And I think we talked about this in the post game pod. There's kind of 2 different types of quarterbacks in terms of how they deal with pressure in the pocket.
right.
You'll have the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Brady's of the world where they will step up into the pocket
Hmm.
and they'll feel that or they'll move just a little bit laterally. Then you have your Russell Wilsons and your Justin Fields and other guys that they'll back out of the pocket. And Bagent backed out, and he backed out into pressure multiple times. I thought he left the pocket way too early multiple times. If he steps up in the pocket, I have 2 more touchdowns on my chart. Do you have 2 more touchdowns in your chart?
Well, I don't chart per se. I just go
Okay.
off of memory. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about, so just to walk everybody through it, so we're not making stuff up, right?
Yeah.
The uh the play that Bagent stepped backwards, then Larry Borum's man got around his feet, and Bagent did a great job to induce a throwaway that was not intentional grounding. Kmet is wide
Great
open.
throw by that part of it, though.
Yeah,
Great job
great
there.
execution and situational management.
Mhm.
Also, if we step up in the pocket, Kmet's wide open in the corner of the end zone.
Man,
Wide open.
they had the switch release, and I was like,
They
"Oh,
got him.
man."
They
Yep.
got him. Luke Getzey was like, "Tecumit," except that's not what he said. He said a different word. Uh, but,
Four-letter word.
but
The other one that I have is, in the end zone where he rolls out too quickly to the right, and he overthrows Mooney, but if he steps up, Mooney's wide open on that crosser for a touchdown.
I think it's so funny because he had Mooney uh, from the pocket. He has Mooney again when he rolls out. If we can layer the ball, and
Yeah.
we
I
didn't
was
do
so
either.
surprised he didn't try it.
But I do want to take like a tiny little pause right here to point out how unbelievable it is that he looked competent enough for us to be mad about, not mad, but like for us to be picking these nits.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
what you and I are talking about is comparing him to other dudes. We are
Yeah.
not comparing him to shrimp and spot starters. I'm
No,
not
no.
comparing Tyson Bagent to Aiden O'Connell when I talk about these levels of execution
He's better. He's
because he
better.
showed he can handle it. He
Yep.
he did manage these situations really well. Was the
Mhm.
ball he threw to Tyler Scott over the middle anything special? Can we be the hot take podcast that says not really? There are 40 quarterbacks in the NFL that are not only going to find Tyler Scott wide open on that dig route, but they're also going to deliver. It's not even a layered throw, man. Like just throw normally to
Yep.
Tyler
Yep.
Scott.
Hit him. Yeah.
But so many quarterbacks don't.
Well, and
And
part of that's you're scared. It's a lot of it isn't even quarterbacking. Sometimes you gotta have the guts to throw downfield. I've been in college, D1, quarterbacks that get in and they're scared to throw the ball and they're running and they're just making dumb mistakes. He didn't make dumb mistakes. That was like his number one thing. And again, I like Tyson Bagent. I'm just judging him off of like things he could have done better to make
well,
this a B or B plus game.
let me just like strip it all the way down to exactly what I bet you're going through, Nick. And that's that there's a whole bunch of people on various internet
Here it is.
forums that
Yes.
have turned an objectively great UDFA quarterback backup role performance. They have taken what should like our expectations should have been low. And Bajent, I think, massively over delivered. He was an
Mm.
excellent version of what I expected him to be.
Yep.
He also threw for 160 yards and a 2.1 average depth of target, which was by far the lowest. Nobody else was lower than 4 in terms of how far they did or didn't throw the ball down the field. And then a bunch of people have run with it and tried to make him out to be not only the starter, but the potential quarterback of the future. And hey, far be it from either of us. Let's just not be those guys who try to say exactly what Bagent isn't and tear him down in what should be an objective moment of celebration. The
Yeah.
list of UDFA quarterbacks that have tried out for an NFL roster is long as hell.
Yes.
The list of UDFA quarterbacks that made a roster is very short. The list of UDFA quarterbacks that not only made a roster, Nick, but they started a game. Not even just played in a game, started a game. That is very short. The
Mhm.
list of UDFA quarterbacks that made an active roster, started a game, and won it. Oh, that is really, really, really short.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, wait, not even that, Robert, because from a stat that I think was televised or I saw from somebody, he's the only rookie quarterback to win his first start this year.
that's hilarious.
CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, etc. He's the first one to win the game.
Respect.
The first game, his first start anyway.
And I mean, to be fair, he got a lot of help. Like, this was, I thought, Luke Getzey's far and away best game. Like,
Yep.
I thought the offensive line brought it. I know we joked about this after the pod, but Lucas Patrick was fighting. It's not to
He
say he
played
was
better.
great.
He played better.
That's the thing. Like,
Yep.
if I had to guess, as silly as we make it sound, Nick, nobody responds better to challenge than a team lifting a quarterback up. And I
Yes.
don't mean that in like everybody's going to make that like, oh, well, Josh Allen doesn't need his team to, lift up. Yeah, that's because Josh is lifting them up. That's the normal
Yes.
relationship with your starter. But like
Yep.
when your backup's in the game, everybody knows they got to go execute just that little bit better.
Mhm.
Right? You're going to run all
100%.
your gadget plays. How many times can you really run the boot out to your right, throw back to your left screen and still get that many guys open? Maybe one more time in 3 weeks. You know what I'm
Can
saying?
can Deontay Foreman know where the sideline is on that play? My gosh, he left on both of the times he tried to hurdle, by the way. In my mind, I'm like, "Man, can you just do a little side juke and stiff arm and you might go 80?"
Right? We predicted this before the show. We talked about it after the show. The simple existence of Tyson Bagent makes a lot of conversation shockingly toxic for no reason. Where people that objectively think Bagent played well are going to start flaming him because other people hearing Bagent played well are going to turn this into, so he's better than Justin Fields. And
I
it's like,
know, like
today, no, he does some things better than Justin Fields. And the fact, I'll go this far with it, Nick. The fact that Tyson Bagent is being compared to Justin Fields is more of a negative for Fields than it is for Bagent, in my
yep,
opinion, because
yep,
I would argue it shouldn't be close. Like,
right.
nobody's going to compare Tyson Bagent to any other starter in the league outside of that guy in San Francisco, who I got to tell you, if Tyson Bagent does unhook the limiter a little bit and throw the ball down the field, he will look an awful lot like Purdy in the good and the bad ways.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about?
my favorite part of his press conference was, and I don't know if you listened to it, the post-game one, was they asked him like, "Well, why did Nathan Peterman go in for the Hail Mary?" Like, "Is it because, you don't have arm strength or this or that?" And he's like, "Oh, I got a cannon." And it was just like so natural that people just started laughing. But like he's got moxie to him, So
Oh yeah,
like as you're saying, I'm not saying I don't like Tyson Bagent. Okay. On the record, this is going to be saved forever. I like Tyson Bagent. I mean, we need to see way more of him, just like San Francisco needs to see way more Brock Purdy, even after the playoff run, because there was in the offseason, they signed Sam Darnold, Trey Lance might start. Like there was still doubts there. Like you need to see way more of a guy before you know if they're the answer or not. But what we do know right now is Tyson Bagent. We said this on Sunday. Tyson Bagent already is going to be a very good quality backup quarterback at a minimum. He could get better. Even if he has a bad game this week, who cares? He's already showed you he can lift the offense up enough for you to survive, just like Chase Daniel, whatever, for 4 years. And that's such a value at his price at a salary. Like we should be
we
celebrating and
should
not
be.
getting into all these controversial stuff. Like
Amen.
this is a very good thing that he played well. And that's from the football perspective. But for me, as like the Tyson Bagent, like this is such a great story. And because you talked about like all the UDFA quarterbacks that, did this, there's this. Isn't he the only D2 quarterback in the NFL right now?
Has to be. I mean, in the NFL right now,
Like,
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I don't even know
that's
how many D2
awesome.
quarterbacks there are at all.
Like I'm excited for him as a person. Like he is living his dream after people have like said no to him. I mean, it's
Exactly.
and people talk about Purdy. I mean, you go about Brady too, like this Cinderella story. Like we want to cheer for those. So I'm still cheering for him. But he
Absolutely.
just has some things to clean up, which all quarterbacks do, especially a rookie in his first start.
Oh
So,
yeah.
I mean, I'm excited for this Sunday.
The perfect example, in my opinion, of stuff. Okay, so every Bears fan, you can probably remember Tyson Bagent's first touchdown pass that we got in this game. The throw to Deontay Foreman that didn't quite ice the game, but dadgummit, it got it close. Like,
Oh, yeah.
huge play for the Bears. On that play, Cole Kmet is running a curl route, and then Darnell Mooney is running a corner route behind the curl. That Mooney corner is wide open. It is
Yep.
going to be hard to get a throw more open than that in the end zone. It's just kind of far, and it does involve going over the top of a corner. Tyson doesn't want to make this throw for whatever reason. I don't live in his brain. I won't speculate. So he checks it down to Deontay Foreman, who has to break a tackle to get into the end zone. The part where you break a tackle is simultaneously badass because Deontay Foreman played a awesome football game,
Yes, he did.
top to bottom.
Yep.
But also, you're not going to break that tackle every time. And
Nope.
you can think of a million guys that you've watched. Kirk Cousins is going to come to mind for some of you, but a lot of other quarterbacks like Andy Dalton, I bet you could help me out with this, Nick, because there have been a million of them. Desmond Ritter, younger quarterbacks do this a lot, where on 3rd and 8, they're going to check it down.
Oh,
And
yeah.
they're going to and that check down is going to start at 6 yards to go. He's going to have to break a tackle, maybe 2, to get a first down. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Brian
Mhm.
Hoyer, right?
Yep. Well,
Cooper Rush.
Cousins did it in the playoff game last year. Again, people were disappointed. It was 4th and 15, and he throws a 6-yard pass to Hawkinson because he's getting pressured, and Jefferson's like triple teamed. And people are like, just throw it to Jefferson. It's like, if Hawkinson breaks the tackle, you're a genius. If he gets tackled short, you're an idiot. It's the same type of thing.
And because that's the secret of quarterbacking, isn't it, Nick? Is that
Yep.
in the NFL, clinical quarterbacking generally only takes you so far, unless you have the best team in football on that day. Clinical quarterbacking will eventually lose to the better team, right? Like if your running game doesn't get off the ground while you pound the rock, and your wide receivers don't block well as you kick out wide receiver quick screens, and the quick game gets swallowed up slowly but surely, yeah, the quarterback's going to have nowhere to go. These starters that we hail so much, what people hope that Drake May, what people hope that Caleb Williams could be, is somebody who can break the rules, somebody who can put a ball into triple coverage to Justin Jefferson that gives Justin Jefferson a chance on that play you're talking about to TJ Hawkinson, right?
Yep.
That's the whole point. And
Well, and that's why some of those guys get more chances, because they have potential to be that guy versus the efficient guy, which by the way,
efficiency is
my
a good thing.
comp.
Efficiency is objectively good,
Yeah.
like you're talking about.
And my Bears comp, so people that have been Bears fans for a long time, and Robert, I don't know how long you've been.
How long are you about to take me back?
This is gonna go ways. This is gonna go back to, remember the Mike Brown back-to-back interception returns for touchdowns to win games
Yes,
days?
I was very young then. But what
Okay.
is this? 2000
Like
what?
it's like 2000-ish, yeah.
Oh man.
My comp right now for Tyson Bagent is Shane Matthews. He's that type of quarterback where he's just super efficient. It's going to be short passes, but he's going to operate. He's going to do the right thing most of the
Right.
time, but he's not going to like win you games with like amazing throws down the field. Like
He-
that's kind of what he reminds me of right now. But again, like you said, I mean, they put the training wheels on him, which I understand why,
and
and
they
they
were
still,
winning. That's
right,
the
and they
other
still did
thing.
the rollout, shorten the field throws, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I hate this. Out to DJ Moore to convert, so it worked, but like, I want the training wheels off of him.
The other thing we got to remember, Nick, and gosh, it disappoints me that we're about 40 minutes into the podcast before I mentioned this. This is so important, Bears fans. Nick, I think you're going to agree with this immediately. I hope so. Is you're talking about a rookie quarterback in his first start who, after about halfway through the first quarter, had a 2-score lead with a defensive head coach that was in his OC's ear. You just know it, saying, if you let this quarterback, this rookie, throw this game away, I am going to fire you as soon as this game is over. Don't you dare.
The end of the first half, we saw that, right?
Exactly. I mean, it's consistent, right?
Mhm.
For as much as we would complain about it, no, this is not the situation. I'm not saying they're right for doing it, but they're going to look at you and say, there's no way this is the situation to do any throat stepping. If anything, they're stepping on their own throats just fine. And we should just let them keep killing themselves.
Right.
And within
And
that,
they did it.
why am I pointing this out? Because if you think about what Tyson Bagent did on Sunday negatively, you're going to say he never threw the ball down the field. If you want to phrase it positively, he basically operated as an extension of the run game for the entire game. And the Bears functionally never stopped running the ball, right?
He was a point guard.
Like he was a point guard in an attack that was more than comfortable grinding out yards. Will that work against everybody? Will that work against Los Angeles? Probably not that easily.
I mean, to make it more specific, Robert, he reminds me of like, it was like a point guard that never turned the ball over, and he gave his guys an opportunity to score. Like if you keep doing that and you keep eliminating the negative, you're going to win more games than you're going to lose. But we do got to move on to other guys. Okay. So, I mean, to wrap it up, we both like Tyson Bagent. We thought he played a great game for UDFA. We're glad he's a Chicago Bear. but crowning him the next whatever is not where we're at right
He has
now.
to show more than that if he's going to be in the legit starter conversation,
Yep.
especially since it may be a moot point with the way that the Panthers pick is shaping up. But again, conversation for the other podcast. Now,
Mhm.
in how much longer? This is it. Just I'm hot questioning you on the pod. How much longer do you want to spend on this game before we talk about what could be a really intriguing Sunday night matchup?
Honestly, not much. I have one other player I want to touch on that secretly impressed me.
Say his name.
Tyler Scott.
Damn, I thought you were going to say Tyreek Stevenson. I thought for sure you were going to say Tyreek Stevenson.
He's your guy. So there's like small things that I saw Tyler Scott doing, which you probably remember this. There was the scramble drill where he went upfield and
hmm
then broke back to the sideline. So
hmm
you could tell he's like, I know I got to break back to my
Yep.
quarterback, but I got to get vertical and then I have to push into my guy. I don't know why my camera's going out right now. But anyways, and it allowed separation for Bagent to get the ball in there, which I
hmm
was like, that's, an amazing, like, just small veteran move that you're doing as a rookie, and, he needs to use his hands on that crosser that he caught and a few other things, but, like, I thought overall it was just such a great, um, game for him.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Oh yes, Nick. And I'll tell you, I always think it's hilarious when people nitpick catching form because everybody wants to be a critic. I'm a critic a lot. And everybody will just suddenly up and talk about how, oh, Tyler Scott's not a natural receiver. He's got to catch that with his hands. What's he doing jumping? I mean, I don't disagree with all of these critiques, but dadgum, can you at least say that when he drops it? You know what I mean? Like, Scott comes up with a huge catch over the middle on a ball that is thrown a little behind him and it kind of sails in the air. So it's got weird timing on it. And people just want to, I don't know, some people lovingly they want so badly to say what is true that they will have no fun in a moment where a rookie, because I have no expectations for rookies. When Tyreek Stevenson makes
Low.
one stop in a game where he's targeted 20 times, I'm going to celebrate it because I expected him to give up the 20th, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like, I think rookies are bad. The fact that Tyler Scott is stepping into, dare I say it, a wide receiver 2 role, because when DJ Moore's not the target, Tyler or like Ty Tyson Bagent trusts Tyler Scott.
He
That's
does.
his guy. That's
He
his
does.
Mooney. And that works. That's great. We get to see what Tyler Scott is in a legitimately supplementary role, and we get to see him develop in the process. I see this
Mhm.
as an absolute win.
Yep. No, I agree with you completely, and we're seeing him, like, eh, the and I complain about this, just from a gutsy point of view. Remember, it was like 2 weeks ago, I said, they bring Mooney in, and he's in that sniffer role, and he's blocking, and it's
Yes.
why it's Darnell Mooney, the small guy, whatever. On the first touchdown run, I believe, for Deontay Foreman, they bring Scott into that spot, and I'm like, Tyler Scott in this spot. What he does, he digs out the DB,
Mhm.
does his job, and they score a touchdown. I'm just like, he's got a little, that grit to him. He's a tough little guy. So, and on that jet sweep on third down, they can too.
Mhm.
He cuts upfield, and Marcus Peters makes very little effort to try and tackle him, but he had the guts to stick it up in there to get the first down, and he got it. So, like, he's doing all these little things, and I'm like, that's going to help Chicago overall
Oh,
win
yeah.
more games.
And again, like the winning, you can't really have your cake and eat it too. If all of these different players on this Bears roster are getting better, and the quarterback does what Tyson Bagent does and simply features his supporting cast and says, "If my cast is better than you, we're gonna win," because that's effectively what he did. Would you agree with
Yeah,
that, Nick?
yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
he basically said, "If DJ Moore is better than you, we're gonna win. If
Mhm,
Deontay Foreman and this offensive line is better than your linebackers and your defensive line, we're gonna win." And they
mhm,
were on a lot of downs. And
mhm,
it was like within that, especially because of the Panthers pick. If the Bears end up with number 1 and number 9, number 2 and number 9, number 4 and number 9, so be it. Like, there's only so much cheering for losing that I can do because cheering for losing means somebody has to screw up, right?
well, Chicago's gonna get 2 good players, no matter how it ends up.
Right.
They might get Harrison and a left tackle. They might get Brock Bowers and a good D lineman. Like, we're gonna get 2 good players no matter how it shakes out.
Right. And so within that, it's like A couple players, if you don't mind me featuring, did you notice that Darnell Wright played the entire game with pretty much only his right hand?
Oh my god. And also against Max Crosby, and Crosby, like, didn't beat him more. I was
I know.
shocked.
I know. Like his left shoulder is clearly hurt. Now he's got a shoulder and toe injury. If he needs to miss time, I hope the Bears are willing to sit him because I would hate
So,
to see a player playing as well as he is
y
get
y
himself
so that
really
that
hurt.
I agree with you, and that leads me into, let's talk about injuries quick so we can kinda
Mhm.
transition a little bit. So, good news today, Roshan Johnson was a full participant from that concussion, which is good news because, and actually, I was probably more critical than I should have been. Darrington Evans, I thought, had a good game,
Mhm.
when looking at the film, but Roshan Johnson is much better than him, so having Roshan and Foreman wearing down a defense was, I really like that idea, but Wright was a do not participant with that shoulder and toe. Brisker was do not participant with an illness. However, limited practice today. Eddie Jackson, that'd be helpful. Dan Feeney and drumroll, surprise, Braxton Jones was a limited participant today, and he is eligible to come off of IR if he's good enough with that neck. And you could see, Robert, where they're like, hey, if Braxton can come back and play left,
Mhm.
Orm can go back to right, and we could just rest Darnell Wright with that shoulder and let him heal up.
I would love that. I really would because now he's got a shoulder and a toe injury. Like they
Right.
listed him for both and said he's DNP. And I mean, like you're saying, you already mentioned this. It's amazing how competitive Wright was as a pass protector,
Oh,
given that he didn't have an inside move. Like he had no protection there. He's literally, Bears fans, you can go back and watch. I'm not kidding. This sounds hyperbolic, but it's real. He is playing with his left hand basically stapled to his hip in a
yeah.
passing posture, but he never uses it. His goal was to mirror with feet and then latch his right arm on Crosby's outside shoulder and effectively like legally hold him and walk him around the edge. And he was able
Yep.
to do that nigh on 20 times.
But
Like,
how doesn't, and again, I'll say this, I don't say this often. How does an elite pass rusher like Max Crosby, because he is, not know that? Because he beat him inside, I think, once for
mhm.
sure. How doesn't he be like, oh, this is a weakness. I should keep doing this. And he didn't do it.
It's got to depend on the defensive call, right? Like the Raiders have not exactly been hailed for being a phenomenally well coached team, right?
No,
And you don't always get a two-way go. Like
right,
the
that's true.
edge player sets the edge, and the Bears were
Yeah,
so willing to pass on first and second down. I mean, God, Nick, if you told me that Crosby was diving inside because he knew our tackle had a problem, I'm gonna figure out how to run a bunch of toss draws and just
right.
run at
Well,
that
and,
side.
and I'm sure like he wouldn't use his left arm. He'd use it some if he had to, and then he'd probably just like lay on Max Crosby because he's got the mass. So speaking of our opponent this week, right?
Mhm.
I'll go through their injury report, and then I've got stats, and then I've got PFF grades, and then we can kind of talk about our matchup and kind of how it'll
Yeah.
go. So injury report. So I don't know if people have been paying attention, but Austin Eckler, he's back and playing, but he's not the same Austin Eckler. He's not healed from that high ankle sprain. So he's one to kind of keep, be aware of. Gerald Everett, starting tight end. He's a do not practice. He's actually played well this year. A guy I don't really mind who needs to step up with Mike Williams out on that team. Khalil Mack, their best overall graded player, by the way, do not participant today, or did not participant. It was more of a rest day, I believe, though. So we'll see how that happens further in the week. This one is alarming, I think. Josh Palmer was a DNP due to a knee, and he has played. And I'll jump up here real quick to the grades. So Keenan Allen's really good. Everyone knows that.
Everybody knows that.
82 PFF grade. Palmer's a 68, which is good, above average. And then Johnston, the first round pick, has been disappointment at a 56. If Palmer can't go, and I mean, Everett's a DMP, he's a 67 at tight end, and Eckler's banged up, and that changes the offense
Allen is still
tremendously.
playing, right?
Allen, yeah. I mean, you got Allen, but like then you just focus on Allen, just like last week. It's just all Adams.
Right. And I mean, I think it's hilarious that you say focus on it because that's one of the other things I think about this Bears defense that is still frustrating. The Bears defense will allow the other offense to dictate the terms, right?
Yeah.
Like the Bears offense didn't bracket Devontae Adams. They just waited for them to screw up a pass to Devontae Adams, which actually they did more than once. So kudos to personnel like Tyreek Stevenson. Thank you, Devontae Adams, for running a couple of routes that I don't think would be Devontae Adams seal of approval routes once
No.
he sees them on
And
tape.
thanks for dropping the touchdown.
Yeah, thanks for dropping a touchdown, Devontae.
The other thing that I was a little surprised when looking at this team in terms of just grades, and I have a bunch of stats we'll get into, but just since I'm on the grades now, their O-line, Robert, is way worse than I thought.
Yes,
So Rashawn Slater, stud, left tackle, 75 grade. Maybe some Bears fans will remember, right? So the center used to be Corey Linsley that came from Green Bay. He's done for the year. He's not playing anymore.
right.
So I'm briefly just going to say the number grade. And again, we talked about this early, one of our first pods, but a 60 is like bare minimum what you want, like average type of player.
Mhm.
So left guard to right tackle, there's 60, 50.7, 58.2, 57.7. That's not a good O-line.
Do you have the Bears left to right comparisons?
Ooh, I'll get it for you.
Pull them up while I rant
Sure.
because I'm going to talk about this. This happens to every fan base, Nick. And the Bears, so everybody convinces themselves that they have the worst offensive line in football. Everybody says, "How could our offensive line be better than our opponent's offensive line?" Because it looks like this. Like Los Angeles is a great example of a worse offensive line than Chicago. The Jaguars right now are a great example of a worse offensive line than Chicago. Honestly, the piecemeal offensive line that the Packers are putting out at times is not getting what Chicago's getting. Now, a lot of this hinges, Nick, off of the Bears' run blocking better. Because believe it or not, it's been their run blocking that has massively tanked their offensive line grades
Yes.
because their pass blocking has been shockingly clean. Most offensive lines, you can't take a sack 5.5 seconds into like 5.5 seconds into sitting in a pocket. And this has been
Mhm.
done more than once this year for
Oh, I agree.
for Chicago. You don't normally get that opportunity, Nick.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
you just weren't still standing there at past, I don't know, 3.5 seconds in a lot of offensive
But
lines.
that's not the design.
No, but beyond not the design, I'm trying to say most offensive lines can't sustain a 5.5 second pocket under
Who can?
any circumstance. The Bears have
Nobody.
in a couple situations, like Tampa, if you remember back then. But
Oh, jeez.
it's more to say that the Bears' offensive line has been what most people would consider bad because that's the real definition of an average NFL offensive line. Would you agree, Nick?
Oh, yeah,
Like,
yeah. No, I agree with you. So here's what their grades were. So we only got 2 games from Braxton Jones. He was a 63.2 at left tackle, which is better than every lineman besides Slater that they have. Borum's at a 50.5, which is right in
so
line
pretty
with
bad
their
because
worst
he
guy.
got torched in Washington, and
Yes,
that's going
torch.
to weight him badly.
To Chase Young, who can we get
Yeah,
Chase Young? Can he come to Chicago?
what
I'd be okay with yeah, yeah. We'll talk about that
if
later. Okay. And then Tevin Jenkins, 63.5. So he's played both guards and he's
also
been
better than everybody on
love
except
having him
Slater.
back. Love having him
Love
back.
having
Yeah,
him back.
and better than everyone but Slater. Um, Darnell Wright, 65 overall, which is better than everyone not named Slater.
And he got tanked in his PFF grade because PFF had to grade his game as if he had two hands. And
Right.
so it wouldn't shock me if we went into the Weinback machine and his PFF grade coming into it before week 6 or week 7 was closer to 68.5. I bet you.
See, now you're gonna make me dig here. Let me look here. It
Uh,
was let's look here. Oh yeah, it was a 45 this week.
yeah, it was bad.
Before that, it was 72, 58, 64, 60, 75, 64. So yeah,
Clean.
yeah,
Really
way better.
good.
Also like and like the last one I'll tell you. So Lucas Patrick, the Bears' worst lineman, I would say,
Right.
right? Is 50.8, which is still point 0.1 better than their center. And he's playing better recently.
Right.
So just tells you that their O-line, it's going to be a little bit of a trouble spot. Um, since we're staying with offense here, let me give you some offensive stats. So, and I have the Bears next to them just so we have a comparison. So, Chargers are tied for seventh in the NFL in yards per play, 5.6 yards
Hmm.
per play. Chicago is 5.2, which is tied for 15th.
That's crazy.
Quarter, I right. Well, and that's why I have this because people like won't believe me. So I'm like, I have to put this.
They've got so
Quarter,
many explosives and at times so few plays that you
yep.
end up with an offense that on a per play basis is way better than it feels sometimes. But I mean, the points don't lie.
Yeah.
Anyways, keep
How,
going.
how about how about this one? Quarterback passer rating. So Chargers, they're sixth, 99.5.
Unsurprising.
Chicago, 90, which is 14th.
I'm just saying.
No one would guess that, right? All the
No, I mean,
Justin Fields hate, and you had to play with the UDFA, and you're 14th.
seriously though, Nick, that's what's so funny about this Justin Fields stuff. Let I want to know your take on this. Justin Fields is playing a game like the style of ball that he's playing is very, very friendly to stats because he
Oh,
doesn't
yes.
throw bad balls. Like
And yet he doesn't throw into tight windows.
the whole issue is that he won't throw to somebody who should be open, and therefore he's in theory taking really high completion percentage, deep shot opportunities, and DJ Moore is the best receiver in ball on an
Yep.
efficiency basis. He's
Yep.
running away with EPA per target
Mhm.
numbers like as the
Well,
number one.
and PFF has Justin Fields is second in any quarterback in deep ball passer rating or grade to Andy Dalton, who only has one start. So if we want to talk about guys that have like any starts, Justin Fields is
Right.
the top guy. So keep going through rushing yards per attempt. Chicago's fifth in the NFL, 4.5, 4.8 yards per carry. And that is shocking because that includes Fields, who hasn't had the long run
No,
this
he
year.
hasn't.
Um, Chargers are tied for 16th, 4.1 points per game. Yeah, this will shock people. Chargers are tied for 11th, 24 points per game. Chicago is 13th, 22.6. They are that close,
The
which is
Bears
what
have
you think.
the big games for the Bears, they have just scored a boatload of points.
Yep.
28, 40, 30. Like these will raise your average really fast.
Yep.
And
And
it
like that Chiefs game is in that. Like you
yeah.
gotta that's in there.
Oh yeah. The Chargers
Um,
just, they only scored 17 against the Chiefs.
yeah. Third down percentage. Chicago is ninth, and the Chargers are 19th. I'll just do the rankings, so it'll
Does
save
that
some time.
surprise you?
That does surprise
Do
me.
you know how it happened?
Last game.
Chicago, I mean, not literally last game.
That game was
I
good.
think it's because Chicago deliberately generates a lot of short third downs. Like the way Chicago likes to run their offense when they're between the 20s, yes, they're going to hunt for big plays down the field, but when you get Fields running the ball, you're blatantly trying to set up 3rd and 2, whereas the Chargers are so throw heavy that you're going to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
into more natural 3rd and 10s. Just
Mhm.
oh, the pass didn't work. Oh, the pass didn't work.
Yep.
Wait, shoot. You know what
Well,
I
and
mean?
and the run game isn't as good, so they're further.
Right?
Well, and Chicago's got the tush push going, so that's gonna
They
help.
do. They've converted a lot of them, and they all
Mhm,
count
mhm.
to
Which
third down
which
conversion percentage.
we should have the debate at some point. I'm against it, but we should have the debate at some point. Not today. We're going late tonight. So, red zone percentage, so that's the percentage of times that you're converting, getting in the red zone to a touchdown. Chicago is tied for 8th. Chargers are 6th. Points per drive. Chargers are 6th in the NFL. Chicago is 10th. Very close.
Wow. Look at the offense go. Maybe
Uh-huh.
Getsy isn't bad. Don't go there yet.
Oh, wow. Wow. Hot taken. So, do you wanna
Listen
talk
to
a little
all
bit
those
about
numbers. Listen to all those numbers and tell me that the OC running that is automatically just awful. That's actually just really hard data to argue with.
I know it is. I
You know what
know
I'm
it is.
saying?
I know it is. Do you want me to jump into defense for both, and then we'll talk about the games?
Do you want to go defense for both, or do we want to? You might as well. You might as well
Right,
because you
'cause
did offenses and now you
right,
do
yeah.
defenses.
Right, yeah, okay, so defensive stats. This isn't as friendly. So I'm gonna preface, so remember, we just talked about how Chicago was balling the last 3 games, but that's kicked into all of this. So yards per play, Chargers are 31st in the NFL. Chicago's 23rd. Blitzing percentage. So often do you blitz? Chargers are 27.8% of the time. Chicago's 23% of the time. And 27.5 is like right in the middle-ish.
It's like middle low.
Yep. Hurry percentage. Chargers are 29th. Chicago's tied for 24th. Pressure percentage includes hurries, knockdowns, and sacks. The Bears rank 29th, not surprisingly. Chargers are 26th. So they're not getting there
No, they're not
often.
balling.
No, no. And which I mean, I didn't go over the PFF grades. I could if you want for defense, but like Khalil Mack's doing well. Joey Bosa's not being what you think he would be.
And they've got that rookie Tuli Tuipulopo who
Mhm.
has played really good ball.
Yep.
But like any rookie, he comes and goes. And I mean,
Right.
it doesn't help anything. I'm serious, man. Everybody keeps making a lot of these edge rushers out to be these utter killers. A lot of edge rushers struggle when you chip them really hard. And the
Yep.
Bears, to use an example, chipped the snot out of Max Crosby. And he
As
did
they should
not,
have.
like, as you should have. And so it sounds to me like a lot of the offenses are just chipping the snot out of Khalil Mack, which is exactly what they should do this week.
Yep. 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 Quarterback rating allowed. The Chargers are 31st in the NFL, allowing 105.6. That is
It
horrendous.
is horrendous.
Chicago's 26th, so and they're at 98.2. Like that's bad, but 105, I take that, and that's the average of every game. Like that's crazy. Um, like I talked about early in the pod, rushing yards per carry allowed. Chicago's tied for first. The Chargers are tied for 13th. Third down percentage, Chicago's bad. They're 31st in allowing, and the Chargers are 10th. That one surprised me a little bit. Fourth down percentage allowed, Chargers are 31st, which that's bizarre to me. You're 10th best,
That is really weird.
and then you're 31st in fourth down, whatever. Chicago's tied for 26th in fourth down percentage. Red zone percentage, Chicago is 31st touchdowns allowed when you get in the red zone, which is shocking for the last 3 games, but I guess they just don't allow them to get in the red zone. And the Chargers are tied for 17th. And then my last one is points allowed per drive. The Chargers are 29th in the NFL, and Chicago is 26th.
Man. And what's really weird, for what it's worth, is that I just pulled up the schedule. And looking at the Chargers' schedule is a really funny experience, right? Because let me name who they've played. For instance, they played the Dolphins. They played the Titans. The Titans hung 27 points on them, which is pretty shocking if you ask me.
Okay. Yeah.
They played the Vikings with Justin Jefferson. They played the Raiders. They played the Cowboys, and they played the Chiefs. A lot of those teams are a lot better than everybody but the Chiefs that the Bears have played on their schedule. But all the same, the rate at which they're giving up points, it kind of has you wondering. And I mean, Nick, I'm not going to pretend that I was able to watch the world's most tape on the Los Angeles Chargers, but let's start with when the Bears have the ball. Does that sound good to you?
Sure.
It feels to me like this Chargers defense likes playing soft. They like those shells, those quarter shells, the too high shells. That's what Brandon Staley believes in. And I'm not saying that favors Bagent, but for somebody who wants to throw the ball short and make fewer mistakes, I have little doubt that the Bears are going to work to try to open Bagent up, because if I had to guess, they know it's not going to work forever. But if they can keep things on the ground, if they can quick screen them to death, play death by 1,000 cuts football, I think the Bears would be down to do it. They're just going to wait for the Chargers to do something about it. And the problem is, if you've seen what I've seen, Nick, this Chargers defense is really vulnerable to the big play. It's not that you can get yards on them on command. It's that guys will just break loose. And if I was the Chargers, you better have a plan for number 2, because nobody has been eating chunkier plays better than DJ Moore has, other than maybe Tyreek Hill. And I really stand on that. Like, it's easy to overrate these guys, or it's easy to overrate Bears players as Bears fans, but DJ Moore has been that good. And if the Bears are going to compete on offense, in my opinion, they've got to chip Khalil Mack. I think it can be done, to be honest.
Mhm.
They probably need to get the ball out fairly quickly, and they got the right quarterback in the game to do it. They're gonna need to expand on the run game that they started with last week, where they were running duo wrap, they were running toss crack, they were running toss out, they ran draws, they ran stuff up the gut. Like, man, they ran everything. It's fun when they do that. By the way,
Mhm.
where was that in week 1? I'm gonna keep complaining about it.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Where was the tush push in week 1?
where was it?
You
Anyways,
convert the first drive, you don't give them that points, you would whatever.
right.
Kind of I agree with you. So I wanna talk a little bit about just their PFF grades on defense because I think that it leads to what we would be able to do offensively. So
Right.
we talked about Khalil Mack, 86.9, just elite, like stud. Um, their next best guy on defense is Asante Samuel Jr., 76.
Pretty good.
Yep, yep, not bad for a corner. So that's their one DB. So their next best
They're
DB is
one
a
DB.
well, yeah, they have one. Their backup safety, who I counted, who's filling in, is a 62.8. That's the only person above a 56 in that secondary. Michael Davis, the other corner, is 46. Their nickels of 46. Derwin James, everybody, who we've heard all about, has not been Derwin James for years. He's at a 55. And then their D line, Joey Bosa, we talked about. He's at a 68, which is just above average ish. They've got two other 60s starting on that D line, 61 and a 60. Then they've got their Justin Jones, okay, on
Oh,
there. Austin
oh
Johnson,
no.
31.9.
Oh
Bad,
no. What's his
bad.
snap percentage? How many snaps is he playing?
He's the starter.
Oh no.
He's bad. Linebackers, one guy will be familiar, Eric Kendricks. He's got
I
a
like him,
70.
but he's
He's not,
old.
yeah, not too bad, but he's old. And then you
Okay,
got,
but he's playing well. Good for
yeah,
him. Good
yeah.
for him.
Then you got Kenneth Murray, who former first round pick out of Oklahoma, I believe, or
Mhm.
second round pick. He's at a 54. So like you got really four guys that are like, so you got elite, Joey Bosa above average, Kendricks, Samuel, and then you've got couple guys that are like 62 to 60, and then the rest are bad. Like, this is not a very good defense.
It's kind of the theme of the whole team, isn't it? That like the
Yep,
Chargers have these eye-popping studs, and then they are a studs and duds org.
they
Everybody
are.
else is just not there, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of this, I mean, PFF, for instance, is going to score you when things go wrong. So I'm sure there are defensive reasons that things are going wrong, but also Brandon Staley does not seem like he is a stabilizing force on the defense. And they keep trying new things. There are two ways to obviously handle like when defensive stuff is going wrong. You can buckle down, try to get better at the basics, basically keep polishing the plan you
Yep.
were working on. That's the direction Matt Eberflus is going. Credit to him. Again, we've played Brian Hoyer. We've played a Kirk Cousins team with where their number one wide receiver was KJ Osborne. Like
Oh,
it's
Jordan Addison was there and he balled out last game.
oh, I know. I'm not trying to take that away from Addison. He's a rookie. I
Yeah.
always forgive the rookies, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But within that, it's like the Bears haven't exactly been playing fanged offenses, but they have been delivering defensive results. Whereas it feels like the Chargers, I have seen them playing more one high stuff. I've seen them playing man looks. They seem like they're trying things, and in trying things, the Chiefs were able to break some long ones. Like
Mhm.
where they just caught a DB one on one with a matchup they like. And I mean, it's don't you feel it? Don't you feel it coming, Nick? Not that the Bears are going to win, but like as Tyler Scott's usage bubbles and bubbles and bubbles and bubbles, we're gonna get Tyler Scott breaking a tackle, former running back, and
Yeah.
breaking off a long chunk
I
at some point, right?
All right, I'm gonna say this, okay? I'm predicting this game, either Tyler Scott or Darnell Mooney are gonna have a big play, like a 40-yard play
Right.
or longer.
Man, that would be big because I'll
And that's
tell
what
you,
Bagent.
man, this Chargers team and the defense is a big reason for it. Like the offense and the defense seem like they cannot win at the same time,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Like when the offense goes cold, the defense gives whatever lead they got back. Like perfect summation. This Chargers team has the talent to go blow for blow with the Kansas City Chiefs, which it's suffice to say the Bears did not do that
No,
in their game against the Chiefs.
no.
17-17. score, rescore, score, answer, score, answer. And then the offense went cold. The defense gave up 24-17, like just that one score, and the game just sat there for a very long time, where then the
Mhm.
defense got it under control, but the offense couldn't move the ball. They end up
Yep.
losing I'm not going to use the word pathetic. That is super not fair. But they end up losing a bummer of a 16-31 game because it promised so much and delivered another loss. They are a 2-4 team for a reason.
Well,
Like,
but also like if you look, so it's 31-17 they lost last week to the Chiefs. They lost 20-17 at home to the Cowboys. So again, two really good teams.
really good
They
teams.
they beat the Raiders the week before
By how
by
many?
7
Mm-hmm.
at home. They beat the Vikings at Minnesota by
No worries,
4,
man. They had that easy game though against the Titans. How'd they do in that one?
lost by 3.
They lost. They went to overtime and they lost.
I mean, and then they lost the shootout to start the year against the Dolphins, but like
Anybody
just
would forgive
such a
them for
very
that.
inconsistent team.
Mm-hmm. It's a team that, I mean, look, pivoting a little bit, Justin Herbert's a beast, and everybody knows it. Like, he
Yep.
is, I don't want to say he's the incarnation of Phillip Rivers because that's like not fair, but it is funny seeing the powder blue Bolt uniform and another quarterback that loads the stat sheet that has crazy talent. And for some reason, man, his team cannot win ball games.
No.
Like,
And this is I'm not trying to be hot takey, but just a way to compare him. He's very similar, I think, to like Dak Prescott, where you're like, this guy's talented, and the team shows promise sometimes, and then they just fall off a cliff other times. You're like, how did this even happen?
totally. And I mean, I the th- I think Herbert's awesome. Like,
Mhm.
objectively. I'm not trying to put him in a bottle. It is just weird from somebody who's a huge fan of his game, seeing him now go through two offensive coordinators. Like, the head coach is going to get fired. And so that'll be his third
He
head coach.
he
Like,
could be the DC for Chicago next year.
he could be. Everybody really wants that. I don't know if we want Brandon Staley as a defensive
He was
coordinator.
amazing at the Rams.
Yeah, who would Nick, you would have been amazing with the Rams. You had Aaron Donald on your front. Like,
Robert,
prime Aaron Donald.
come on.
No,
Don't
I'm
tell people about my talent.
I am half playing. It's
I
more to
know you are.
say that, like,
I know you are.
no, what I'm really trying to get at, Nick, is there are a bunch of these defensive coordinators that we will give a lot of credit because they were able to identify a game-wrecking player, and then that player wrecked the game. What
Oh, I
made
know.
Matt Eberflus's scheme work? DeForest Buckner. He
Well,
also had Grover
they had
Stewart.
Donald and they had Jalen Ramsey too. Like,
Exactly. And
like,
they
okay,
had
I
John
get it.
Johnson, and they had Leonard Floyd, say what you
And they
will,
have
but like
Michael Brockers, I think. Yeah, they had
they
some guys.
didn't they trade for Von Miller? Like, at
Oh
one
yeah,
point too?
yeah,
Like, they built a defense with dudes on it. And
yeah.
I'm not saying that this is a similar problem that we actually saw in 2018 and then 2019 with Vic Fangio, right? Where it's like the Fangio scheme without dudes doesn't really like work. Whereas the Fangio scheme
No.
with dudes, yeah, it's awesome. I mean, the 2018 defense was like legendary, and I hope it's remembered because it was that good.
Oh yeah.
But a lot of defensive schemes are let's bring the floor up. That is what the Bears are trying to do when they coach it well. That's this defensive scheme doesn't have a floor. When you
No.
run it badly, you get roasted.
Well, so a couple other things for this game for people just to be aware of. So Staley is big into analytics and things. So like that Raiders game that we're talking about, that was not Jimmy Garoppolo starting. That was the Aiden O'Connell game starting. And
Oh yeah, you
I
should mention
remember
that.
twice. This is the one that cost me money, Robert FanDuel. So the Chargers are up by a touchdown, and they go for it on like their 40. He is big into going for it on fourth down, no matter what. They don't convert. The Raiders drive down and throw a pick inside the 10. The Chargers drive. Oh no, they turned it over on their own like 25 going for it on fourth down.
Oh, rip.
Then the Raiders threw a pick, and then they have to throw a bomb on 3rd and 10 in their own like 30 to convert, and then they ran out the clock. Like they will go for it a lot, and they're not afraid to do it. And also, Justin Herbert is hurt. People don't know he's got a splint. He has like a broken finger on his
Oh, that
non-throwing hand.
sucks.
Yep, and that might be affecting him some too.
And that's the thing here, Nick. Like, the Bears are, last I checked, 9.5 point dogs. Like, Vegas hates them in this
Yep.
game. And I just can't help but sit here and look. And here's exactly what I'm trying to say. The Bears in this last game they played against the Raiders showed that they may have turned the corner, not to being a good team, but to being a normal, not great NFL team. That if you don't play well, then they will let you beat yourself.
Yep.
Right. And unfortunately for people who are like really tired of the Bagent discourse, Tyson Bagent is about to play not only a bad defense, where grinding them on the ground may totally work. Like, these are not stud defensive tackles that are
And
going to
and you have
push.
Roshan back.
Like, well, they need Roshan back, but Deontay Foreman is a battering ram of a human being. And so if like you get Tevin Jenkins and Nate Davis is on IR, right?
Yeah. Well,
So
no, I don't think they IR'd him. He just did not practice.
he just didn't practice. Maybe who knows? I'm not going to make any assumptions. But if
No.
we see week 7 Cody Whitehair, who looked like the sprightliest Cody Whitehair I've seen in a long time, if we see angry Lucas Patrick, if we see angry Tevin Jenkins, and we see whatever we can get out of Darnell Wright, maybe this offensive line is able to move the ball a little bit.
Well,
And if
hold on, Robert. Chicago can win this game.
they really can.
That's where you're going to. They can. Now, I don't think it's the most odds. I don't think it's probable, but I think it can happen. It's not like if miracles happen here, here, and here, they'll win a game. If they play a solid game and the Chargers don't go lights out, they're going to win the game.
That's the thing, though. That's the caveat you need is
Mhm.
the Chargers are known for chargering these situations,
Yes.
and
Good and bad.
good and bad. And if the Chargers charger this, absolutely Tyson Bagent could have the ball in his hands with an obnoxiously long 2.5 minutes to like go get a winning field goal. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
the Chargers don't seem like the cardiac Chargers, if you will, like don't play blowout games. Every game is at least visually interesting for other people. Maybe that's how they're trying to win fans, right?
Yeah,
But
they haven't won by 9.5 this year. They've won by 4 and by 3.
no. And Justin Herbert against the Bears defense, yeah, I don't like their odds either. But also, the to win on offense, your receivers need to beat the opposing corner. And here's the problem, man. Like Nick, let's go through the Bears' recent schedule, right? Say what you will about the quality of the offenses that we just talked about. Tyreek Stevenson's gotten some pretty good reps against some pretty good receivers. Like
Very
Tyreek Stevenson had to man up Terry McLaurin. Then he got a little week off, and then he just played Devontae Adams for an entire week. You tell me, who do you think is the more dangerous receiver? Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams?
Adams.
I tend to think you're
Well,
right.
think early in the year, he had to deal with Mike Evans just owning him. He learned
Yeah.
a lot.
And you're telling me that Keenan Allen, yes, he's a very technical receiver, but also he's a big dude who leans on people. You're telling me that's like a good matchup against a corner that at this point is scrapping like with every bit of physicality that he's able to bring and way springier than people realize? Man, if the Bears just man up the Chargers, I'm not saying they will win. I'm not crazy, but
No.
you may see Justin Herbert have to make 8 throws on a drive to go get into field or to get deep into field goal range with a shot at a touchdown instead of just like 3. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
I can't help but feel like the Bears defensive game plan basically just has to be to not let the Chargers get chunks on you. Like
yeah.
wait until they run the ball and jump on them when they do.
Well, and I think it's gonna be interesting to see how the injury report finishes here. If Braxton does come back, if Brisker's out with the illness, that would suck. If they lose Everett or Palmer, I mean, then it's truly and Eckler's not 100% yet. Maybe he's gonna be 100% this game. He hasn't been
Maybe.
yet, but if really it's only Keenan Allen and Herbert playing with a bunch of Jalen Guyton type guys, like I think it's Darius Davis,
There's
like
a cat
when
named Parham, right?
well, Donald Parham is like a 6'7" tight end. Here, let me go through their guys. So they have Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, Keenan Allen, Darius Davis, and Simi Fioco are the receivers, and then
Right.
tight end Gerald Everett, Donald Parham, who's huge, Trey McKitty, who's a third round pick a few years ago, didn't do much, and Stone Smart is his name, tight end.
That's a cool name. I
Yep.
like I Stone Smart seems like the kind of guy that you could just automatically get along with. Like,
Yeah.
that's a cool dude. Uh, if you were going to go through and you were going to pick, you can pick up to two because I'm feeling generous. Two defensive matchups of the game. What are you looking at?
Um, I mean, I think it would be. I would say Jalen Johnson, Keenan Allen would be the nice one, but I'm not. I'm gonna go different. I'm gonna say T.J. Edwards versus Austin Eckler because I think if the Chargers win this game, I don't think it's gonna be these crazy plays down the field. I think it's
No.
gonna be Austin Eckler, like, got 12 receptions,
Right.
and you could add in Edmonds into this too, but, like, those 2 limiting that, I think is gonna be huge for them, and then our boy, can Andrew Billings just own that interior offensive line that is
Man.
just trash?
Two
If he
great
can get
matchups.
movement, he can get pressure, he can disrupt, I think it's really gonna cause those you talked about 3rd and 10s to happen, 3rd and 12s, and I think that's really gonna help Chicago's odds.
I agree with you. Now, like you said, you talked about Jalen Johnson versus Keenan Allen. Here's the problem. The Bears are letting any offense line up their guy against wherever they want to. So one of my matchups has to be this game will go as Tyreek Stevenson goes. If Tyreek Stevenson gives up 150 yards, just like he did against Tampa, we will lose. Like
Yep,
the Bears will get smoked on offense unless
yep,
their offense is cooking. Separate conversation, right?
mhm,
But I got to tell you, Tyreek Stevenson is standing up to a baptism by fire. This is why I think, anyways, Nick, everybody needs to remember just how bad rookie DBs are because after week 3, I think it was, after maybe it was week 5 of 2022, Kyler Gordon was by any statistical measure the worst corner in football. And
yep,
then he got better. But going all the way back, people thought Jalen Johnson was a little bit of a disappointment until around week 8, he turned a corner. Tyreek
mhm,
Stevenson looks to me like he is turning a little bit of a corner. And I don't think it's going to last. I don't think it's going to be on every down. Like, don't tweet at me if he gives up a catch or two. Because what Tyreek's doing is he's a batter that's gone up to the plate and he said he's going to throw me a slider. I will take as many pitches as I have to take and foul off as many fastballs as I need to foul off because eventually he's going to throw me a slider. With Devontae Adams, the slider was the slant.
yep,
Why did Devontae Adams get so open in that route on the end zone? Because Adams threw him a slant fake and
yep,
then turned it into a fade. That was a sweet route, and it caught Tyreek Stevenson leaning. But Stevenson is an anticipator. Like, he's got all of the core traits of a DB that isn't just competitive, but eventually pretty doggone good. So, how much of that do we see in this game? The game that'll determine a lot. The other one,
well well, here, can I lean into that? Because
oh
you were a
yeah,
little bit on Stevenson, and so if Bears fans haven't seen some of the tweets going out about Jalen Johnson's stats this
they're
week,
outstanding.
and awesome, awesome, and, like, please, Ryan Poles, pay the man. Make us feel good.
Pay him or
Have that
trade him.
spot
Just don't
locked
let
down.
that man walk for free. Like,
But Kyler Gordon last week,
ooh, ooh,
I mean I
say
mean I
it.
mean, film looked good. I look over your my PFF grade, he was a 71.3 last week.
Kind of ballin'.
So, if you're the Chargers, right, and you gotta put Keenan Allen anywhere, you're picking Stevenson. So, I'm leaning into yours because 'cause you're like, "I don't wanna go against Gordon. I sure as heck don't wanna put him against Jalen Johnson, who's balling." So, to me, my plea, because Matt Eberflus listens to our podcast.
Oh
He
yeah,
obviously, every week.
it's his guilty pleasure because we're not
Flus.
super positive about him, but
No.
he's got
I like he's a guilty pleasure, it's amazing. Flus, please, please bracket Keenan Allen when he goes against Stevenson, have him over the top,
you know
and then
he's
just let
not
him be
gonna.
as aggressive as he wants to be.
You know he's not gonna. He's gonna
Well,
leave
I
him
know,
out
but
there.
please do it. Please.
The good news is, seriously, like Stevenson has been getting baptized by receivers for weeks, and I am a huge believer that that L he took 150 some odd yards against Mike Evans put him in a puncher's mindset. And now we're seeing you can rip off big gains against Tyreek Stevenson. You really can because he's
Yep.
going to take about half of your passes away from you. And so
Mhm.
the half he gives back, that's up to you. You want a 10-yard quick out? You can have it. You want a 40-yard ball downfield? Teams have tried for 2 weeks. They just haven't connected. Herbert might be that dude. There's another name we have to mention. You mentioned TJ Edwards. Great choice. I'm going to pick his partner. This is the game. We are at it. We don't have a play action passer that's trying to attack the middle of the field. We have a bullet thrower that tries to attack the middle of the field. Like, if Tremaine Edmonds was ever going to have a game where he needs to just take up a massive amount of space in
Yeah.
coverage, this is that game. Like, either if I was just being real with you, man, if I was the Chargers offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, I would be trying to get Keenan Allen, probably with a size advantage on Kyler Gordon. And like you mentioned, not wanting Kyler Gordon, Kyler Gordon's played really well against smaller receivers. If we could get Keenan Allen on Kyler Gordon, we might like that. But then the Bears won't drop into man. Then the Bears are going to drop into zone because they
Yeah.
want Tremaine Edmonds on, as ridiculous as that sounds, on a guy like Keenan Allen playing zone coverage so that
Dude.
you can try to have the huge dude take space away, so that you could try to have the huge dude try to cut off some of these tight ends. This is his moment. We finally ran into a team that doesn't even want to run the ball.
No.
Tremaine,
Not good at it.
Tremaine, this is you. This is you, dude. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not calling it. I'm not calling it. But if the Chargers charger this game, you will know they are going to, because Tremaine Edmonds will pick off. Does he have 3 in a row? Am I insane? Like, this
We
would
had one
make 3 in
last
a row.
game.
Like, he
It might be
picked
3 in a
off
row, yeah.
he picked off a tipper against Kirk Cousins. He picked off a
Yeah.
tipper against Brian Hoyer, and
3 in a row will be
this
something.
time he would jump it. Like, this time you would get the slightly stereotypical, like, Herbert's under pressure because our dancing bear number 97 penned into the backfield, and then Herbert lets go of the ball, and I think it'd be 49 who'd jump in front of a tight end route of some kind, and
Wow.
Bears fans would just lose their minds. Like,
Yeah.
but that's my like imaginative call that if they, the other thing, I'm just going to say it. If the Bears win this game, okay, so before we get to offensive matchups, I guess I want to hit you with a hot take, Nick.
Yeah.
If the Bears win this game, any fan that wants to see Matt Eberflus fired is in danger of not getting their wish, because this is a game that they shouldn't win. But if you win this one, then 6-ish wins gets a lot more likely. Like, if you want Matt Eberflus fired, I'm just going to tell you right now, you probably want the Bears to lose an emphatic 14-31, like on primetime television. That
Right.
would be this like reminder. That would be a metaphorical pat on the shoulder. No, this isn't working, George. Like, and he would remember that. But if the Bears are spicy, Nick, like, I'm not going to buy back in. I don't like the scheme, but you will have to tip your hat to a coach that outcoached the guy across from him, because he'll do it off of roster talent and with a backup quarterback. And that will mean something to the guys in the org. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with you completely. And that's the thing is, like, the Bears are at a tipping point because they've been close. They've won 2 out of the last 3. Should have been 3 in a row. But you win this one?
They should have won 4 out of their last 5.
I
No,
know.
they should have won 5 out of their last 5.
No, 5.
Does
Kansas
5
City.
take me back too far?
5's Kansas City.
Oh, I'm trying to go back to Denver. So I guess it's 4. Like, they should have closed Denver. They did win Washington. You think
Minnesota.
like they should have closed Minnesota.
Yep.
They did win Raiders. So you're right. That should have been, man, this team could be 6-1 and they wouldn't have to be good. Like,
I know. It's
they
crazy.
could be such a paper tiger 6-1 team.
Our pod's getting really long. I'll go offensive matchups, then we gotta go predictions. We gotta be out.
Yeah.
So my offensive matchups are going to be probably different ones than people might expect. I'm going to go with a little bit out there ones, but I think if we win these ones, you're going to know Chicago is winning the game because these guys are on the field. Okay. Here's one that's a little surprising, but will make sense. Mercedes Lewis helping on the DNs,
Oh, wow.
pass pro, right? And the run game where he's gonna chip
Right.
down and get down to Kendricks and those backers. Him and And then my other one, which I could cheat and put them together, I guess would be Kari Blast game doing the same thing. He's in that run game because if Chicago's going to win this game, we're going to lean on the run game and we're going to have 35 carries and we're going to beat the crap out of the Chargers. So I would say like that's like one matchup, okay? And the other one is bad versus bad. It's going to be our center and our left guard against their bad interior D lineman. And we can't be worse than them. If we are better than them and make them look bad, we got a shot. If they're playing games and twists up front and we're looking like how we have looked before last week, we're not going to win.
It's unironically a huge matchup and really apt that you point that one out, if you ask me. Like that's a great call where you look at two bad units and you say, "Oh no, we can't be the worst one." Like it's got to go better than that.
See, Robert, that's why people listen to this. This isn't a fantasy football podcast.
Nah.
And DJ Moore versus Asante Samuel, and like this,
Nah.
we're not highlighting that stuff. We're talking about the gritty stuff.
Let me get
Chicago
meta.
has to win that trench matchup.
Let me get meta as hell. Okay, Tyson Bagent versus the moment. Say what you will, call it storybook. Tyson Bagent has now won a game, which is awesome. Gives him a lot of momentum. But also, it's one thing to hit a home run, then you get your next at bat and people lean in a little bit further. You know what I'm saying? Like now there's a full game of tape. Say what you will. Again, say what you will. We got a game and a half to break down. Generally speaking, if you've ever wondered why a player can burst on the scene, play 2 sick games, and then just goes quiet and disappears, what happened?
Jordan Love?
Right. You get tape. Now you know how to play these guys, right? I have no doubt in my mind Tyson Bagent is going to get asked to adjust in this game. I don't know what that's going to mean. It could mean, I'm just saying, that he runs for 70 yards. Like, it could mean that he throws the ball to literally just some of the open smash routes, like the highs on the high-low routes that were wide open last week. It could mean he lofts some underthrown balls to DJ Moore that the guy comes down with anyways. It doesn't, I don't really care how it's done. I'm not expecting style points, but Tyson Bagent, like, man, prime time football. Like you go from playing.
Prime time. If he wins, the Bears win, but he's the quarterback against Justin Herbert in prime time on the road.
It's huge. Like you win that game, you are probably going to be the starter until you lose. That's another hot take. Like
wow,
Tyson Bagent wins this game. I think the Bears would find ways to just lengthen Justin Fields' injury recovery, if that makes sense.
That is a hot take.
This is the coaching staff trying to find ways to excuse an awful September. And if you're telling me, Nick, that they wouldn't go, "Oh, you mean the quarterback that that lost 14 games last year and then he lost 5 games this year?"
We can't get it. That's such a big topic.
It would be so unfair to be so.
He just threw 8 touchdowns in 2 games before he got hurt. The game before he got hurt.
And then they would go, "Oh, you mean one of those games that he lost because he fumbled and the defensive and the defense got a touchdown out of it?" And then you, Nick, would go, "Tyson Bagent gave up a defensive touchdown that lost us Minnesota. What are you talking about?" And then they'd go, "Oh, you mean the game that he didn't have 50 passing yards in net, after the first half?"
We can't do. We don't know. You don't have time for this.
These coaches. What's your next matchup? I'm saying these coaches are gonna get ugly about it. Like maybe not publicly, but they got jobs to save, right? Yeah. And so to me, like Tyson Bagent, you have gone from starting against Colorado State or Colorado School of Mines to starting against the Raiders to starting in primetime, lights on ya. And is it oh my gosh. Of course it's away. So it's your first road game.
LA, baby.
So you're in SoFi, man. They're going to be people you follow on Instagram on the front row. Like it's, oh man, that's got to be just wild. Can't get starstruck. It's got to be a football
Are you
game.
trying to say like Taylor Swift's going to shift to Tyson Bagent?
No, I'm talking about like the guys that live in Los Angeles, right? Like LeBron comes to these things sometimes. Yeah. Like just people that maybe he'd recognize that because they do this every time there's an LA game. They just pan to Rob Lowe and then like Paul Rudd's there and Will
Yeah.
Ferrell's there, like a
Yep.
bunch of random people. And it's
Yeah.
like, anyways. So matchup one, Tyson Bagent versus the moment. I
Okay.
loved your matchup. I'm gonna just echo what you're saying, which is like Darnell Wright plus whatever tight end is assisting him versus Khalil Mack.
Yes.
DJ Moore versus Asante Samuel. You win that matchup, man, checkmate. Like you should be able to do whatever you want to from the
Because
passing game perspective.
Mooney's winning against their two, and I like Tyler Scott better than their nickel at this
Seriously.
point.
Like from a weaponry perspective, if DJ Moore draws two, because that's what that would mean. If Asante Samuel can't stop DJ Moore, you're going to have to draw two defenders. You're going to create automatic one-on-ones and make things as close to free and easy as they're going to be for a
Wait,
UDFA quarterback.
when you said draw two, Robert, I mean, my first thought was Uno, and then it was drawing more coverage, but either way, it fits. So,
Right. And so I'm stoked for this game. I really am. This should be fun. Let's
yep.
get to predictions. I will lead off. I think the Bears come out flat.
What were you doing for the last half hour
I know,
hyping this up?
I know. It's because it's a sick matchup and it could be so much. What do I actually think? I want to be on Old Takes Exposed for this, Nick, because I've watched these Bears games my whole life. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
I think Tyson has a couple moments where he grips the ball too tight. I think like we see a couple deep. I think after all this Twitter criticism, as much as we joke about it, the Bears are going to throw a couple sideline goes, the world's safest deep ball, right? And if one of them's too short,
Yeah.
I don't know what happens. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we'll see. But if you actually made me predict, I think the Bears are going to probably lose. I'm going to go with 17 to like 24 in a game that doesn't feel that close. But the score line is going to say it all the same because the Chargers just can't quite put them away.
Right.
What do you think?
I'm going to go 24-21 Chargers as well. So similar stat lines, but because I think that Chicago can run the ball, which I think will give them a lot of scoring opportunities.
Right.
But I do think that the advantage of having Justin Herbert at home, I mean, Bagent, even what he is, even if he's efficient, is crap versus Herbert and, you have some stars on that team. I just think it's too much to overcome 2 weeks in a row.
So they get a bunch of scoring opportunities, but they score 3 touchdowns and no field goals. Or did you just predict, what would that be? How many field goals is that? 7 field goals? Like, is that what's the prediction? How did they get to 21?
Should I just say 7 field goals? Because that'd be hilarious. Like, man, they moved the ball the entire game. They never punted. 7 field goals. Like,
they just kept getting to the 20s, stalling out.
I think 3 touchdowns. I think that they drive down. I mean, like those long sustained runs and, wearing them down. And then we just can't corral them enough that they score more points than us.
Right. I think that's super reasonable. I really think if you ask me which is more likely, the Bears get blown out or the Bears win, that it's actually the Bears winning, but the blowout's on the table. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it is.
I'm dying to know.
So we're taking the under. We're under 9.5, right?
Well, by under you mean we think they cover.
Yeah, or cover. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I do. I don't think the Chargers are a good enough team to just put the Bears away. Like,
right.
I think Vegas thinks the Chargers have a decent defense, and I don't think they have a decent defense. And so, like Brandon Staley, I don't know. We could keep talking about rationale, but the truth is, Nick, this is a huge prove it game for the HC and the QB, because if they want to, this is their moment to say to their doubters, of which there are plenty of us that are, that I am not who you think I am. And if Matt Eberflus's team comes out locked in on the road and takes this game away, man, like, I'm not saying that they've got some momentum, but that would be a statement.
Well,
right before New Orleans.
Then it's at New Orleans. Then it's home short week Panthers, and then it's Lions, Vikings, Lions, Browns, tough. Cardinals, Falcons, Packers to end, which is easy. So then you've got 2 I mean, you got a shot, but you got to do this. If you don't do this, then it's the Bears who we thought they were. Denny Green quote.
Yep. Hey, what are your final thoughts on the game?
I am excited for a lot of this talent that has shown through. I'm excited for Jalen Johnson to show out. I'm excited for some of these other weapons to show out. I'm excited for Tyson Bagent. Like, we're believing in him. Tevin Jenkins bouncing back. Like, there's a lot of hope for this team. And win or lose, I'm just hoping that the Bears play well and those guys can keep kind of extending that progress that they've already made.
Hell yeah. I'm right there with you. If you're telling me that Eddie Jackson tries to play on his foot, can't play on his foot, Jaquan Brisker gets hurt, and Elijah Hicks just keeps getting smoked by Justin Herbert, and that's why the Bears lose in a tough competitive game, I would argue that is like the best case scenario. Like
Mm,
for the future of the team, that's probably the best case scenario.
Yep.
But that's because I want a coaching change. Anyways. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We really appreciate your support. Please leave us a review on whatever podcast listening platform that you listen on. If that's YouTube, leave us a like. If that's Spotify, hit us with a 5-star review. If it's Apple Podcasts, leave us something nice. Let us know in the comments, in our Twitter DMs, in anything, what you're enjoying about this Bears podcast. Tell your friends. It is relatively new. We want to blow this thing up. We would love to do this full time. So if we can get this thing moving, we'll sell a sponsorship, and Nick and I
Mhm.
will actually be able to spend that much more time, probably add an extra podcast. Hey, I'm going
Oh
to throw
yeah.
you guys a bone. Like, if we're able to do this full time, like, we're going to do minimum 3, maybe up to 4 podcasts a week. But
Mhm.
anyways, that's all a dream for the future. We really appreciate it. Nick, what you got going on for the rest of the week?
So as I was very, very close on DFS this week, so the
Oh, no.
contrarian thing is still working.
Yeah, there you go.
I'll just quick shout out that Cooper Cup was on all my rosters and he didn't do a whole lot this week. If him or
Rip.
Stafford did something, I would be up probably 4 figures. So um I would look out for that article. And then on Friday, I will be releasing a Tyson Bagent every pass play video.
There you go. And see, I'm going to post this podcast on Thursday morning, and I'm going to get some sleep because we have a big game coming up on Sunday night, and Sunday nights always mean late night podcasts and late night work. So it
Mhm.
should be an awesome, awesome Sunday night week coming up. We've also got some big games coming up in the world of the rest of the NFL, big games for the Bears too, but that's a topic for another time. And until next time, Bears fans, thanks so much for listening. Bear down. Thanks so much for bearing with us.